Remember, in the course of discussing movies, the host will spoil plots. You've been warned. Listen to their screams. Greetings, ghouls and creeps, and welcome to Listen to Their Screams, a horror podcast that feels like you're chatting with friends. And I am one of your friends, Dave, and we are joined, as always, by your other friend, Ike. Ike, how are you?
Doing pretty good. I'm cold. It's very cold down here today. Very cold and rainy.
Yeah, it's a little chilly here too. Well, I mean, I say chilly. It's like in the 50s. That feels cold to me now. But yeah, we've actually got the heat on, and it's because it got a little nippy. So and I don't like being cold. So
Same.
that's why I moved away from the snow. Fuck that snow shit.
Didn't move far enough away, I guess. If it's still cold.
Not yet, no. But on today's episode, we are reviewing the Shudder exclusive movie Rebirth. We'll get to that in a little bit. Before we get into that, here in our opening bit, we do want to talk just a moment about a book that we received review copies of. It's called Sleepaway Camp, Making the Movie and Reigniting the Campfire. It's written by Jeff Hayes. You can get a copy of the book. It's available now from 1984 Publishing. So look at it wherever you purchase books, or you can just visit the publishing company by going to 1984publishing.com. And that's 1984 as in numbers, 1984publishing.com. And I really recommend this book. Of course, I'm a huge fan of the Sleepaway Camp movie. Absolutely love it. I think it's one of the better horror movies of all time. And I love this book. I love books that dive into behind the scenes, right, and tell us a little bit about it. And this book was kind of special, right? Because Jeff Hayes, the author, was clearly a super fan of this movie, right? He talked about running a website for Sleepaway Camp for many years, and in the course of this, he has talked to virtually everybody associated with this movie. So it translated over where he had, all the interviews and content to convert it over to a book and kind of tell the story. So I like that, right? I like guys that write books and do projects that they're passionate about, because you know that they're gonna do it justice. And I think this book, as far as a making of type book, I think it did Sleepaway Camp justice.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let me preface it real quick by saying that I haven't read a book, and probably well over, like, what I mean by book is I mean like an actual print on paper book, not like a comic book or like manga. This is the first book that I've probably read in well over 6 years. And that's probably a bad thing. It's just, as an adult, I just never have time to read. But I found time to read, and, I sat down with this book, and I plowed through it in like 2 days. It was, like you said, it was actually a relatively quick read. It was not very hard to get into. And I think what helped is that obviously I love Sleepaway Camp, but yeah. Like Dave said, this book did Sleepaway Camp justice. Obviously, I don't want to throw too many spoilers, because there is some pretty interesting stuff that I didn't know about the production of the movie in the book. So I won't talk too much about that, because I really want people to have the experience I did, which was jumping into this book blind, reading it, and really getting the full, I guess you could say, palette of this book, because there's so much to it. The book is very diverse, because it's not just stories from behind the scenes. It's stories about the release of the book. It's stories about the website, stories about some of the early horror conventions of the 2000s. And really, it's kind of mind-boggling that once upon a time that Sleepaway Camp was sort of unknown, that it was sort of like a back of the shelf movie that kind of just did what it did, had its cult following. But I feel like in today's day and age, it's so huge. You see Felissa Rose, I hope I said her name right. You see her at all kinds of conventions, and she's sort of become sort of an icon in a way. But to think that, as early as like 15, 20 years ago, she was just, doing off-Broadway productions because, that's what she was doing at the time. And That's a little snippet from the book that kind of talks about her, before she really got back into the whole acting gig, and it's really interesting. The only thing I want to really say about this, because I don't want to drag too long on it, is that I really, really, really enjoyed hearing about Aunt Martha, because her, the actress's name is Desiree Gold, and obviously the actress, you don't really hear about her anymore, and she, unfortunately passed away a couple years ago. But it was really, quite incredible to kind of hear her story too, and to hear, Jeff Hayes kind of reminiscing about her, and speaking fondly of her, and his sort of, tribute to her. So I love the book. I will definitely come back to this book. And I'm very grateful to, 1984 Publishing, and Matthew over there, who actually sent the book, it looks like. And, very grateful for that, because it was a good book and it got me back into reading. I'm already reading other books. So take that for what you will.
Yeah, but like I said, it's great because Jeff Hayes, created a website for Sleepaway Camp before it was kind of the hip thing to do, right? He created a website before, and the book's just chock full of great pictures and everything else. And one of my favorite things about the book is when they describe how the effects were done. Yeah. And because a lot of these effects, the practical effects, and a lot of them, there was nothing developed to be able to do these things, right? The arrow through the neck and this and that. They talked about how they had to develop how to do it, right? And how to make it look realistic, and to meet what was wanted. And it explains what they do. It even shows, some of the drawings and the sketches and the technical drawings that they did for these things. So it's really fascinating. It's a really, really, really good look at this movie. And it is a great movie. It's one of my favorite movies. And again, this book is great. Like I said, they talk to everybody. He talks to everybody associated with the movie, both on screen, behind this camera, whatever else. And it's really a great book. I cannot recommend it enough for people who, even if it's not necessarily one of your favorite movies, it's just a great peek behind how early 80s horror movies were made, and what they had to do, and how the workings were. So it's a great thing, which is very important historically for how horror developed. So I highly recommend the book, just if nothing else, for the historical significance of the genre. So
absolutely. One other thing too is it was really cool to hear about how the kids were treated, on the set too, because a lot of times, and it's unfortunate, you read a lot of really horrible things about like how kids are treated on movies and stuff. But like literally, I mean, all of the actors like really said that it was an experience like none other, and it was truly like going to camp. So it was also a feel good book, because you definitely felt good about hearing about it, and you felt good about hearing these stories, and it was very heartwarming in a lot of parts, because some of these people, who they talked to, 20 years after the movie came out, they're like, wow, people still like this movie. So
yeah, I love it. Again, one of my favorite, I wouldn't even say horror movies, just one of my favorite movies. And it's one of those movies that you always wish you could go back and watch it again for the first time, because it blows your mind at the end. But it is a great movie. And even that, right? They describe how that was done at the end, the final scene. And it talks about that. So great book. Again, it's called Sleepaway Camp: Making the Movie and Reigniting the Campfire by Jeff Hayes. Again, I think it's out there available from pretty much any book retailer. But if you have trouble finding it for whatever reason, you can go to 1984publishing.com and get it straight from them. And once again, like I said, thanks to 1984 Publishing and all their people for hooking us up, giving us those review copies. It's very much appreciated. And I highly recommend the work they're doing when they're letting authors, they're helping authors publish books like this. That's a good thing. So really quick, Ike, before we move on, did you watch anything this week of note? I really didn't watch much. I watched the new Treehouse of Horror, which I loved, by The Simpsons. But otherwise, I really haven't watched stuff. I've been busy and haven't watched much. Have you watched anything besides the movie we're reviewing today?
I went and actually watched It's a Wonderful Knife,
right,
which I saw in theaters, but I don't want to talk about it because it is a Shudder movie, so it will eventually be on Shudder. So I want to wait for when it comes to streaming, and that way we can do like a whole review about it. So I did see that, but for now I will hold my opinions until it comes out and Dave can watch it.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll obviously, with the Christmas season coming on, I'm sure this will be one of the movies we'll try to hit up. So, all right then, let's get to our weekly segment. Top 3. And this week we are doing top 3. It feels like it's been forever since we've done top 3. I don't know why it feels that way. I mean, this was the original, right? This was the original segment that we did every week before we started mixing in other things. But this week we're doing our top 3 favorite reanimation horror movies, essentially, because that's kind of the gist of Birth, Rebirth. And I will put it up front that just as a precursor, because everybody knows that I love 1931's Frankenstein, I took Frankenstein out of the running. I'm not even putting it in there because everybody knows I love it. I put it on virtually any list I can. So no Frankenstein on my list. I took it off. So it is not in my top 3. So there you have it. Just trying to mix it up. But I don't know how much I mixed it up because most of these movies I've talked about endlessly anyway. But I guess I love what I love and I am what I am, as Popeye would say. So, Ike, are you ready to talk about our top 3 favorite reanimation movies?
I sure am. But I do want to clarify, when he says reanimation, we're pretty much, I would say, almost solely excluding like zombies. This is more like true reanimation. Like a person dies, they get brought back, and they sort of resemble who they were before they died type deal. So you won't hear much about actual zombie movies, although some of these might fit into sort of the quote-unquote zombie genre. But yes, I am ready to talk about our actual true reanimation movies.
All right, well, I'll kick it off. Again, no surprise here, right? I think this is a movie I've mentioned many times. Everybody knows that I love a good Stephen King movie. So at number 3 from 1989, my choice is Pet Sematary. We have talked about this multiple times. I love Pet Sematary. We just talked about Bloodlines a few weeks ago. So, and I'm sure I gushed over the original Pet Sematary then. I love the first Pet Sematary. Such a great movie. That kid that's reanimated, so damn creepy. And it's just, it is, I don't know. It's a great movie that, that balance of wanting someone brought back to the perils of what happens when you do. I think it's a great movie that illustrates it. So that's my number 3 choice. Ike, what do you think of Pet Sematary from 1989?
Well, Pet Sematary is on my list. It is not my number 3, but it is my number 2.
There you go.
So I will give some thoughts here, and then I'll say my number 2 here in a second, of course. But like you said, Stephen King is amazing. Pet Sematary is amazing. I actually recently, after Bloodlines, because I watched Bloodlines and we had a whole discussion about like the continuity errors, I went back and watched the remake of Pet Sematary, which was surprisingly better than I remembered. And of course, I rewatched Pet Sematary 1 and 2, which, again, Pet Sematary 2 is just a lot of fun, let's be real. But Pet Sematary, the original, it's a fantastic movie. It, like you said, it really talks about the sort of moral and ethical quandaries of something supernatural like the Pet Sematary. And one of the biggest conversations of reanimation is, sometimes dead is better.
Yep, it is. And not to mention the fact that, I mean, come on, it's got a Ramones song in it, fucking, that pushes it over the top for me. When that is a classic song. I'm a huge Ramones guy, but the Ramones doing Pet Sematary is a great song. So, all right, so that's my number 3. That is your number 2. So, Ike, then, what is your number 3 then?
My number 3 is a movie called The Lazarus Effect. The Lazarus Effect was actually sort of a sleeper movie. It came out in 2015. Basically, it is the story of bringing somebody back to life, but maybe you shouldn't. And this movie definitely dabbles more into the supernatural aspect of things because it basically poses the question of, when a person dies for so long and you try and bring them back, what if they brought something back with them? But this movie has Olivia Wilde, Mark Duplass, Evan Peters, Donald Glover. I mean, this movie is stacked. It has a lot of really great actors and actresses in it. Honestly, I don't hear a lot of people talking about this too much, but definitely a good one. I need to go back and watch it, actually. It's streaming, I think, on Peacock, if anybody's curious.
Yeah, this is one of those movies that excuse me, I kind of gave some thoughts to put on my list, and it just couldn't quite, crack my top 3. But it is a pretty decent movie, and like you, I haven't watched it in a long time, so it's one that I might revisit now that we kind of brought it up. But a pretty good flick, pretty good. So that's your number 3, and we all know what your number 2 obviously is. Your number 2 is Pet Sematary. So that brings me to my number 2. My number 2 from 1990 is Flatliners, and this is it's a pretty cool movie with a pretty loaded cast now, especially in retrospect. And these kids that are going to the brink of death, right? That's the rush of going to the brink of death, and then they cross the line a few times, and it's a pretty cool movie. It's your kind of your prototypical 90s type movie, but it's fun. It's got a great cast, loaded with people. Ike, you ever seen Flatliners?
I have not seen the original Flatliners. Like I said, I know it has a pretty loaded cast. I have seen the 2017 remake with Elliot Page. But I did like the remake, and I like the concept, so I have no doubt that I would like the original.
Yeah, again, great cast. I mean, it's your prototypical 90s cast, right? Some great people in it, but yeah, it's a pretty cool movie. Yeah, again, 90s horror often gets overlooked, right? I mean, people talk about Scream and the Scream movies, but there's some other nuggets and gems out there. And we've talked about a few of them here lately. I Know What You Did Last Summer, and there's a couple others that we brought up in the anniversaries here recently that people maybe need to re-explore. But I think Flatliners is one of them. So, but like we said, we knew your number 2, so I guess we're going to kick back to you. Somehow we've shifted the order here a little bit, but we're ready for the number 1s. Ike, what is your number 1?
Yeah, absolutely. So this one, I dug a little, I thought about it. I'm like, I feel like this is an reanimation movie. I feel like it has to be. But I said Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives.
Yeah.
What better way to talk about reanimation, but to bring back probably one of my favorite Friday the 13th films. Part 6, of course, is the story, of basically Jason coming back to life. Tommy Jarvis stabs him in the chest with a little pike. It zaps him, brings him back to life. And, Part 6, has one of the best designed Jasons, in my opinion, with the kind of decrepit looking body. And, I mean, he's obviously been dead for a while. So, I love Friday the 13th. Friday the 13th Part 6 I have a soft spot for that one. I have a soft spot for a lot of the cheesy ones, but, yeah, I mean, come on, Friday the 13th. It's Jason meets Frankenstein, basically. So how can you not like that?
Yeah, I strongly consider this too. And we did a whole episode, right, where we reviewed Part 6 and we reviewed Frankenstein and then compared the similarities between the two. And there's a lot, right? There's a lot of direct, intentional, similarities between the two. And it's, so there's definitely some reanimation, right, with Wormy Jason and everything else. And yeah, it's one of my favorite of the Friday the 13th too. So, but yeah, it didn't make my list. I don't think anybody that has listened to the show for any time or that knows me would be surprised by my number 1. My number 1 from 1985, it's in the name, is Reanimator. Again, I will go down swinging and fucking singing the praises for this movie. This movie is so damn good with Jeffrey Combs, Barbara Crampton, everything else. I love this movie. This movie is one of my favorite absolute movies of all time. And the whole gist of the movie is a doctor, who is bringing people back, right, for the sake of exploration and scientific discovery and everything else. There's no sentimental value or anything else, right? It's just a power thing, right? Just a knowledge thing. And of course, it goes awry. And things happen, and there's some very classic scenes, right? Some detached heads that are reanimated and talking, and a very cool scene in a morgue with people coming back and whatnot. But that is my favorite movie, and I guess that's the appropriate movie to cap this talk off, right? Because I mean, we're talking reanimation, movies, and well, what better to top it all off than with the movie called Reanimator? And I can't remember, is this a movie you've seen, or is this on the Dave watch list for you?
This is on my Dave's watch list. I have not yet seen this movie. It's at the top though. I have to sit down and watch it.
It is such a good movie, so much fun. Yeah, you got to watch it. So, all right. Now that concludes the top three, our top three favorite reanimation movies. And here in a bit, we're going to discuss another one of those. That's Rebirth, that is on Shudder. But before we get to that, we're going to cover news, birthdays, and anniversaries. But we're going to take a quick break, catch our breath, and we will come back with all that information for you. So stick around. Make sure you subscribe to Listen to Their Screams on your favorite podcast platform. Also, make sure you look us up on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, TikTok, and Slasher. All you have to do is look up Listen to Screams. That is Listen, the number 2 and Screams, and you can find us there. Also, make sure you go and buy yourself a Listen to Their Screams t-shirt. You can find all of our shirts at tinyurl.com/Screams Shirts.
Spread the news. Spread the news. Spread the news. And we are back with the news. All right. I have a couple little gems and nuggets for you here. Starting us off at the top, the teaser for Terrifier 3 is officially out publicly. Check our social media for the YouTube link to view, but the movie is coming to theaters October 25th, 2024. We've talked about this a lot, obviously. We're both super excited. It is going to be a horror movie set around Christmas time, so art versus Santa Claus. You heard that right. Dave and I are super pumped for this, so October 25th, 2024 could not get here any quicker.
Yeah, the official trailer that was where they showed Terrifier 2 again in theaters is officially out there, and it is beautiful. It is amazing, and there's talks. Damien Leone has talked that the opening sequence of this movie, he has said has kept. I can't remember how he put it. Right, he's kept major studios from funding him, something to that effect. So it makes you wonder what that is. Everybody's speculation is that does art kill a child in the opening sequence, right? That's that's one of those rules of horror, right? That's people are like, what do you, don't you, is it okay, is it it's fucking movies, guys, come on.
Yeah.
Give me a break. But I don't know. And the other speculation is, does art kill Santa Claus? And I mean, it could go many ways. Whatever it is, all I know is this. I love Art the Clown. I love the Terrifier movies. I love Christmas horror movies. So you put those two bitches together, Dave's a happy guy. So bring it on. I can't wait for next fall.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I'm very curious to see where that's coming from. So I guess we'll see next October. But between now and then, we have some other cool stuff coming out. We actually got recent news for the Strangers sort of reboot type deal as well. So we have Chapter 1 coming in 2024. It is described as a young couple driving cross country towards a new beginning. Unfortunately, they have no choice but to stop in a secluded Airbnb in Oregon and endure a night of terror against 3 masked strangers. It is the first installment of a new trilogy of standalone sequel films where Chapter 1 will follow a similar premise to the original release before continuing from there and expanding the story arc for the main characters. Though initially marketed as a reboot of the franchise, it has since been clarified that the films will take place in the same continuity as the first 2 installments. So this is pretty big news. Dave and I have long talked about how much we love the Strangers films. And we have talked about a little bit about the reboot / remake / requel, whatever you want to call it. And we had some details. And for a long time, it was reported that the first part was actually supposed to come out this year. But I had the feeling that the writer's strike probably postponed that a little bit to 2024. No big deal. We're getting it next year. But I'm very curious. There is actually a teaser clip out there that they released a couple months ago that I recently watched. I don't know, Dave, have you watched it?
I have not.
Okay. It's nothing crazy. It basically just kind of has a little bit of the setting and one of the main characters, which is Madeline Petch, I believe is her name, I think. But anywho, it should be good. I have confidence that this will be a strong entry into the Strangers franchise. And I have confidence that with it being a 3-part story, that it's a very well thought out franchise. So I have promise.
Yeah, again, I don't know what's going on with the reboot, but in line, I don't know. Whatever. We'll see what happens with that and what all that means. It's hard to kind of sift through all that until we see the movie. All I know is The Strangers is one of the creepiest movies I've ever seen because of the possibility of it, right?
Yeah.
That's something about something like that could truly happen, right? That's not that far fetched, and it is really creepy. So I'm really excited to see what they do, especially knowing there's going to be a trilogy of this. I hopefully it all works out. It's all well. It's all good. It all keeps that creep factor that the original had. But whatever it may be, I think The Strangers is really a underappreciated horror movie, and
Yeah.
so I'm excited to kind of see it brought to the modern times, and hopefully it gets a little more love.
Absolutely. So we'll catch that next year. But until then, if you guys are interested, you can check out The Strangers and Strangers Pray at Night, which are going to be in the same continuity. So check those out. We also have Max developing a new series based on the Conjuring universe. According to Warner Brothers, the Conjuring television series will continue the story established in the feature films. Producer Peter Safran is attached to executive produce the series via his Safran Company banner. James Wan, who also produced and directed several films within the franchises, in talks to also executive produce. Wan's Atomic Monster Productions is backing the project alongside Warner Brothers Television. I've long said that I think Conjuring would work well in a television format. I think one of the biggest and most unspoken about aspects of the Conjuring universe is the Warrens' closet of mysteries, if you will. They have a lot of interesting things in there, and they touched on it super briefly in the Annabelle Comes Home movie. But I have a feeling that you could definitely expand upon all of the stories of the different items in that room, and you could turn it into a television format, and it would be a perfectly good series. And I think it would work well. So
Yeah,
I'm very excited for that.
yeah, me too. There's so much you could do. I think in the Conjuring universe, they've already done, right? There's already been, lots of exploration, but yeah, I again, we've talked about it a lot. It really seems cool when these franchises and different things are diving into the series aspect and finding a way to do that. And I think that's cool, right? Because we've always had these series of movies, and now that you can do, a short series on streaming of shorter snippets, but if there's this overall, story, it's a new vein to explore and to tap into, and it's pretty cool. It gives it a fresh feel, and again, I mean, there's so much you could do with the Conjuring universe that it's pretty limitless.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So we'll be checking that out as soon as it comes out. I have a feeling that with it being in pre-production at this point, we probably won't see it until at the earliest, very late 2024. So we shall see. That coming to a close on our news. We have some upcoming birthdays. November 20th, 1954, Richard Brooker, Jason in Friday the 13th, Part 3. He actually passed away back in 2013 around April 8th. So happy
Yep.
birthday to him. Obviously,
Yep.
Part 3 is a great part. That's when we
Yep.
get the infamous hockey mask. So that's a good episode. That's a good one.
Yep. Yep. Very iconic. Lucky Jason. Back when we talked Friday the 13th, I think I said this is kind of the Jason I always envisioned. It's Part 3. So yeah, very iconic. And so this is the man that portrayed it.
That's absolutely right. Gotta love it. And then we also have November 21st, 1944, we have Harold Ramis. He plays Dr. Egon Spengler in the Ghostbusters film. He did, of course, pass away on February 24th, 2014. But of course, Harold Ramis lives on. He actually has sort of a posthumous cameo in the Ghostbusters Afterlife. So
Yeah.
that was a very touching moment as well. So
Yeah.
obviously, much love to Harold Ramis.
Yeah. And of course, his character, I mean, his, in character granddaughter is one of the main characters in the new movies. So the character is living on and carrying on. And again, he had a huge hand in developing and writing the Ghostbusters movie with Dan Aykroyd. So but it's nice to see they're honoring him and his fingerprints are still in that franchise.
Yeah, absolutely. And then last but certainly not least, we have November 22nd, 1958, Jamie Lee Curtis, of course, from Halloween, The Fog, Prom Night, and Terror Train. Jamie Lee Curtis is an icon. She is, I think she's one of the most famous and original Final Girls. And, she also had a wonderful part in Everything Everywhere All at Once. I think she actually won an Oscar for that movie. So, a good birthday for the month, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge one within horror. How you don't get much bigger than Jamie Lee. So,
that's right.
I mean, and everybody thinks Halloween, but yeah, I mean, you're talking The Fog, Prom Night, Terror Train. I mean, these are all really great movies. So she's done a lot to earn that Scream Queen honor.
That's very true. That is very true. And then we also have some upcoming movie anniversaries. These are some good ones too. November 18th, 2022, we have The Menu. I love The Menu. The Menu is, again, it's one of those ones that I think it gets a little overlooked as sort of like a parody in some ways. But it's really good. You have Ralph Fiennes, Anya Taylor-Joy, Nicholas Hoult, amongst others. And, it was one of my favorite movies of 2022, I think, that kind of bridged the gap between horror and thriller, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we did a full review on it, but I think we talked about it a little maybe at some point last year. But yeah, it's a very fun movie. And I highly advise if anybody's not watched it to give it a watch. It's a great movie.
Absolutely. And then, of course, November 18th, 1983, we have Sleepaway Camp. You heard that right. We talked about the book, and the book came out, and our review came out within very, very good timing. Sleepaway Camp is celebrating, 40 years this year. So that's pretty incredible. A lot of films from 40 years ago aren't talked about as much as Sleepaway Camp is. So much props to the Sleepaway Camp film and the relative people to it.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it earlier when we talked about the book, but it's such a great movie, and we're talking 40 years, so that's pretty cool.
Yep, 40 years, that's crazy. And then November 19, 2021, we have Ghostbusters Afterlife. So we just talked about Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters Afterlife as well. Ghostbusters Afterlife is actually pretty decent. It came out at sort of an unfortunate time, right before I feel like people really felt comfortable going back to the theaters. So I don't think it performed as well as people were hoping it would in theaters, but I heard that the streaming performance is pretty strong. So, I feel pretty hopeful about the new entry that's coming up, and hopefully we'll see some more from that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I liked Afterlife. I thought it was a fun movie, and I'm looking forward to the next one. But it was the timing was kind of off, but it's a pretty fun movie and worthy of continuing on the Ghostbusters franchise.
Yep, absolutely. And then last but certainly not least, again, November 21st, 1931, we have Frankenstein, the original reanimation movie. So I think it's very, I can't remember, think of the word, but it is very telling and very appropriate that we be talking about, Frankenstein this year. So definitely a good one. Something we've actually reviewed before on the podcast and actually compared it to Friday the 13th, Jason Lives. So that's a good episode. I enjoyed.
Yeah. And again, I what can I say about Frankenstein that I've not said a million times? I love the movie. I think it's a perfect movie. It is gorgeous, brilliant, a wonderful interpretation of the book. I love the movie. So I said it a million times. I don't need to say it anymore.
Very true. And then now we have some upcoming releases. We have Eli Roth's Thanksgiving coming to theaters on November 17th. It is described as after a Black Friday riot ends in tragedy, a mysterious Thanksgiving-inspired killer terrorizes Plymouth, Massachusetts, the birthplace of the infamous holiday. We are actually going to be reviewing this next week, but I'm super pumped for this. It's Eli Roth. It's Thanksgiving. It's slasher. What more could you want?
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm a sucker for indie holiday-themed horror movies. And again, we don't we don't have enough good Thanksgiving ones. So I'm curious to see it, and can't wait to see. And like you said, we'll talk about this more next week.
And actually, just a real quick throwing out there because I saw a trailer for this movie during the movie I watched last night. It's a Wonderful Knife. But there's a movie coming out next year, January 19th, called Founders Day, and it looks super similar to Thanksgiving, like stupid similar. I don't want to say they copied, but it definitely feels like they did. It definitely feels like it did.
What? Horror movie
Yeah,
copying when there's something that's out there successful? Never.
right. That's what I'm saying. But maybe in January we can watch that movie and compare the two. It may be completely different. I might be completely off, but I mean it's called Founders Day, and the guy that's killing people is wearing like a fucking pilgrim mask. So I mean,
There you go.
I don't know. Anywho, uh, we also have Visitors coming to Screambox on November 21st. This movie is a Japanese anthology movie described as a rock and roll band drop in unannounced on a friend and find themselves plummeting into a wackadoo reverie of monsters and mayhem. So I have a question. Did you write this description? Because wackadoo is in Dave's vocabulary. So did you write this or did they write this?
I did not. This is literally from them. This is
Okay.
literally from Screambox. So yeah, they're just tapped into my needs, I guess.
Apparently, because I have heard Dave say wackadoo
I
on many occasions.
love the word wackadoo. Yeah, that's a great word.
This is how you get Dave to watch your movie. Just put
Uh-huh.
wackadoo in the description. But
Pe-
okay.
people say this movie has the craziest opening scene of virtually any movie. So I'm curious what that means. And I think I'm going to watch it just to see what they're talking about.
Same. I love Japanese movies. I love anthology movies, and I love wackadoo reverie of monsters and mayhem. So, check it out on the Screenbox. I know we will. But well, there you have it. Those are our news, movies, anniversaries, upcoming releases. You know what I'm gonna say next. If you don't follow us on social media, you're a fucking loser. And
You're a
coming up,
bum.
that's right, you're a bum living in a van down by the river. Uh, up next, we have our official review of Birth/Rebirth. Stick around.
Listen to Their Screams is now a Fangoria collaborator. Get 20% off your order at shop.fangoria.com by using the promo code LISTEN2SCREAMS at checkout. That is listen, the number 2, and screams. Or you can click the link in the show notes. All right, and we are back here on Listen to Their Screams, and it is review time. And today we are reviewing Birth/Rebirth. It was released August 18th, 2023 in limited theaters, and it was released on November 10th on Shudder. It was written by Laura Moss and Brendan O'Brien. I'm curious, Brendan O'Brien was a music producer and stuff. I wonder if it's the same Brendan O'Brien. Anyway, I digress. It was directed by Laura Moss. It was starring Judy Reyes, Marin Ireland, Brita Wool, and AJ Lister, excuse me. And I'm going to tell you, man, I don't have a lot to say about this movie. I was really hopeful for this movie, right? It really looked promising, and I was enjoying the movie or whatever else. And I know we talk spoilers. So here we go. And I was really enjoying the movie. I thought it was good and whatever else. And then it's like it came to the ending. I thought, what the fuck was that? And it was weird the way I don't know. It was very anticlimactic, and I didn't think it was done there. And then like credits rolled, and I was like, okay. And it really kind of lacked the action and shit that I really wanted for this movie. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, the movie was well acted. I liked all the characters in it and everything else, but it felt very weird to me. It just felt like it was, I don't know, it was missing something, because it's like I didn't expect it to end there. I really expected kind of a shit show ending when they brought the daughter back essentially the second time, and I really thought there was going to be it was going to hit the fan, and it just went to credits, and I was like, okay, and it kind of, I don't know, it soured me on the movie a little bit. I was with them. Most of the way. Again, it did drag a little. I think they could have put a little more action in there. I was getting hopeful when the little girl killed the pig and everything else. I thought, here we go, we're starting to ramp up, and then it really didn't. And don't know. I just felt like it was. I kind of felt like it was an unproductive movie. It it had the gist of it and the the foundation and whatnot, and then it just kind of it really fell flat.
Gotcha. Here's the deal. I do agree to an extent. I will say this before I get into my spiel that I did enjoy the movie. I did genuinely like the movie. I do agree that the ending was it felt like they stopped a few steps too short on the ending. I felt like you could have thrown an additional you could have you could have made like the climax of the movie where I mean it's not necessarily a climax even because it's the end, but sort of the whole point of the end is that they bring the daughter back for the second time. Again, you already know spoilers, but I felt like they could have punched that back 20 minutes into the movie and then added another 10-15 minutes to the end, and you could have done a lot with 30 minutes at the end of the movie, with the daughter coming back for the second time. Because here's the deal.
It was just so weird the way it ended. It was just, it felt, I don't know, it felt odd. I don't know. It was, I don't know. It was hard to describe. It's not even that it was unsettling. It's just like you expected, I don't know, you expected something. And then that was it. I don't know. It was weird.
Yeah, and that's kind of part of the issue is that this whole movie, right? Because like I said, the movie, the whole purpose of the movie is that this woman's daughter dies, and you have sort of this Dr. Frankenstein-esque woman who has sort of this weird obsession with bringing people back from the dead, and she's worked on this project for so long, and she brings the daughter back to life, and the mom's like, wow, this is amazing. But then there's obviously sort of the dark side of the whole reanimation process where the woman is using fetuses and stem cells from those fetuses to further her research. But she just gets herself pregnant and then basically uses that baby, or that fetus, I should say, to, basically use the stem cells. And it's this super weird, I like that part of it. It was weird. Mm-hmm. It was strange. It was disturbing. It was just, I felt like they built all this weirdness up, this strange shit, this really horrible stuff that the woman literally poisoned a pregnant mother to induce labor to get the woman to give them basically the stem cells from the child. And she even said she didn't mean to kill the mom or whatever, but I mean the mom dies and the baby dies, I think. Maybe not. But and so they do all this kind of quite frankly fucked up stuff that really makes you guess wow, these people are really fucked in the head. And it's fucked up thing after fucked up thing after fucked up thing. They get to the end, they bring the daughter back, and then it's just done. And that's my issue, is that they treaded all of this ground for it to basically allude to nothing. Now, I don't know if they plan to make another movie. That'd be great. Make another sequel. I think it would be beneficial for the movie because I need to see what happens to the daughter the second time around. Because, like Dave said, she wasn't all there the first time they brought her back. I mean, she killed a pig randomly, which I don't know about you guys. I don't really go around killing pigs. I typically not, unless you put a plate of bacon in front of me. But I don't go around doing that. So obviously it's a little weird. And so the brought back the reanimated girl obviously isn't firing all cylinders. So they let her die because they ran out of the treatment that was needed to keep her alive. They put her on ice, and the mom decided, you know what? I'm not letting this happen. So she gets more of the stuff that she needs and accidentally kills somebody. And then it's just nothing else. They bring her back, and that's it. Lights off. You know what I mean? So there's so much more they could have done. Obviously, I think that they could have gone the deadly route where she's starts killing people, or at the very least starts being a zombie. I don't know.
I don't know. It just needed something. I mean, even if it's just one more scene or so, I don't know. It was weird because I like the one doctor, right, who was very very matter of fact about things, right, who was obviously had a very I don't even know how to describe it. A very jaded, very she had seen some shit, right, with her mom dying and everything else. So she had this very black and white view on the world, and she was just consumed by being able to bring people back and this research and this was the way it is, and the scientific theory and blah blah blah. I really liked there was her, and then there was the other lady who was so emotional, so compassionate and sympathetic, but put into a position of what do I do when my compassion and care for others and what I do in my job conflicts with what I need, what I want. And, that's, what ended up happening when she accidentally killed the one lady. And, it's a very, I don't know, it's a relatable scenario, right? What would, would any of us do for our children, right? We would cross some lines if need be. And anybody who says otherwise is probably lying. And, so I liked how there was the contrast of the characters, but how this situation kind of brought them closer to not being so far apart, not being so different. And I mean, you saw, the one doctor who was very cut and dry. I mean, she softened a little on some certain things. And so you saw this scenario that they were put into, or that they put themselves into, brought them closer together, and where they weren't quite so different in the end. And then, like you said, it just came to this final scene that was just like, bam, that's it. And it's like, we at least needed, one more scene of something, just I don't know, a little, I don't know, something, because it just didn't feel like the right point to stop the movie. And I watched because I thought, well, maybe there's a credit scene or something, right? That will kind of ease it. But I don't know. It ended in an uneasy way, and not a good uneasy, right? Some movies can end in an uneasy way that just makes you want to see the next one, and there could be a cliffhanger or whatever. This didn't feel like a cliffhanger. It didn't feel like an appropriate uneasy. It just felt odd. It felt like, I don't know, like we had to cut 5 minutes off the movie. Let's just cut the closed scene. That's what it felt like. It's like you're missing part of the movie. It seemed odd to me. It didn't, because the movie was really telling a good story and was flowing very well. And it seemed peculiar. It seemed out of character for the movie, the way it ended. And I'm not saying it had to be anything spectacular. It just felt like it was a few minutes short, and maybe one more scene short, where they could have done something. And I'm not saying, again, it had to be some big massacre or anything else, but just something. It just felt like something was missing right on the end. And
seemed like it was missing just a few fries short of a Happy Meal.
Yeah, and it was weird. And I think I don't know, I think it was a good closing away for making this a really, really great movie, because it had me. I was very intrigued, very interested. They had me invested. I maybe would have liked to have seen a little more spook and violence thrown in there. A little more, hey, is this girl going to go ape shit on us? Right? They only showed the pig thing, but maybe we could have at least put in a few more teases here and there. But overall, the movie had me going, and I was enjoying it. And then that movie came, and it's just like I kind of forgot everything that I liked. I thought, well, fuck this. What is this? They just kind of, it's like, you make this really, really great dinner, and then you just take a piss all over it. And it just, I don't know. It was weird. And I don't know how to explain it. I really can't put myself in their shoes. What were they trying to accomplish with that? It just seemed peculiar.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I don't know. I mean, if they are thinking sequel, I mean, I guess it seems a little ballsy to put that much stock in that. Oh, we're going to make a sequel. I don't know, because it was, I don't know. It was weird. And I'm okay with the cliffhanger, but at least give us something to tease a little. It felt odd. So again, because of that, the finish brought down the movie for me some of what I probably brought down my rating some of what it would have been. Because as much as I enjoyed the majority of the movie going through it, all I can think about is how that ending just really kicked me in the nads and left me befuddled, for lack of a better word.
Kicked you in the nads, and you're like, well, that was uncalled for.
It's kicking the nads is always uncalled for. Unless there's a, extreme self-defense, I guess. But anyway, so let's rate this bitch. So it's Birth/Rebirth. It's available on Shudder. Again, people should go watch it because, like I said, the whole movie was, I was enjoying it until this weird ending, and I really think people ought to just watch it to see. Do you agree that the ending was that peculiar? It just felt odd. But who am I? I don't know. But I'm still still think I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5, because like I said, I enjoyed. If I try to put the ending out of my head, I still enjoyed the movie. I think if it had a really strong finish, this movie could have been. It would have been a 3.5. Depending on the ending, it might have been able to push a 4 with me because I was really enjoying the movie. And but man, the ending was just such a letdown that it pretty much brought it firmly down to a 3 for me. And it's it's only hanging on to a 3 because the rest of the movie was pretty enjoyable for me. So, what are you thinking, Ike?
I pretty much have to agree to a T, like you said. I mean, the movie was so good. I mean, for lack of a better phrase, this is one of the better, built up movies that I've seen in a long time. Had really great music, great ambience. The actors actresses were great. The girl that plays the little girl, fantastic, wonderful performance, very creepy. But like you said, it just kind of felt like they were riding a high, and I like you said, depending on how that movie ended, I was very tempted to give it a 4, but it just felt like it fell short right at the end. It's just like they pressed the brakes right before they hit the finish line. And it's a 3 for me, just 3 out of 5.
Yeah, I agree. And again, when I watched the movie and it first finished, I thought, fuck that, this is a 2. I really did. I thought when it finished, I thought, shit, this is ridiculous. And then I thought, I had to take a breath and look at the whole movie and not just the ending. Even though the ending's all that really sticks with me, which is, that's what happens. And so, I can give it a fair 3 because, again, I did enjoy the movie. But, God, that ending, I don't even comprehend. I don't even know what to say about it. It was perplexing. And I think I've used a whole slew of words to describe that ending. And it is what it is. So anyway, next episode, like we said earlier, we are going to review Thanksgiving, the Eli Roth movie that is going to be available November 17th in theaters. Hopefully you all go out and watch it and support the movie. I'm excited to see it. I'm excited to review it. It's going to be fun, I believe. But we'll see. We will talk about that next week. But Ike, before we close out this reanimation episode, anything you want to throw in?
Well, bring me back to life when they make a part 2 to Birth Rebirth.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. Maybe they will. I will go into it skeptical though after that finish, but we'll see. We will see. Who knows? Who knows? So anyway, until next episode, when, like we said, we'll be reviewing the Eli Roth movie Thanksgiving. Wherever you go and whatever you do, be good, be safe, and have many pleasant nightmares.